I never thought a single family dinner could turn into a moment that would completely flip the table, literally and figuratively. But that night, my Aunt Margaret managed to do it. She walked in with her perfectly polished heels, her designer handbag swinging, ready to show off her successful life, and she walked out speechless. After I opened one email. Before I get to the email, you need to know a little about the people I married into, and why Margaret thought she could look down on me. My name is Emily, and I married into a family where success isn't just celebrated, it's weaponized. Every interaction, every dinner conversation, every passing compliment is somehow measured against the corporate ladder. Your worth is counted in titles, salaries, and the logos of the companies you work for. Anything else is politely tolerated or subtly ridiculed. At first, I tried to blend in. I thought I could charm my way through it with a few smiles and light conversation. But it quickly became clear that in this family, charm alone doesn't hold any weight. You have to look the part, talk the part, and have the right career credentials pinned on your chest like medals. My father-in-law, Richard, is a retired attorney. He's sharp, intimidating, and when he speaks, people actually listen. He has this subtle way of making you feel like your words are insignificant, like he's constantly weighing them on some invisible scale. He doesn't need to raise his voice. His gaze alone does the work. And trust me, he has perfected it over decades of courtrooms and boardrooms. My mother-in-law, Linda, runs a charitable organization, but she treats it like it's a Fortune 500 company. Every event, every dinner, every project is a performance. The house is always spotless, the table settings are straight out of a magazine, and the conversations are carefully curated to showcase her network, influence, and social standing. Linda has this uncanny ability to compliment someone while simultaneously making them feel inferior. A single sentence from her can leave you questioning your own life choices. Then there's my husband, Daniel. Sweet, supportive, but also painfully aware of the family politics. He's good at reading situations and protecting me from unnecessary blows, but he can't shield me from everything. He often whispers small reassurances under the table or nudges me discreetly when someone crosses a line. Daniel works in tech, and while his career is respectable, it's often undervalued by the rest of the family because it's not corporate enough. He loves what he does, but I can see the way his shoulders tense when his mother or aunt starts subtly comparing him to someone else. Now, let's talk about Aunt Margaret. She is the reason I felt both invisible and belittled at every gathering. Margaret is tall, impeccably dressed, and has this aura of self-importance that fills a room the second she steps in. She works as a senior vice president at a multinational consulting firm, a title she never lets anyone forget. But her real talent isn't in her job. It's in her ability to use it as a weapon during family dinners. Every word she speaks is carefully calculated to assert dominance. Every story she tells about her boardroom triumphs is meant to remind everyone of her place on the family hierarchy. Margaret has been a thorn in my side since I married Daniel. From the first Thanksgiving I spent at their house, she subtly mocked my freelancing career. She doesn't just tease, she condescends. She has a habit of looking me up and down, smirking as if she's evaluating whether I measure up to her impossible standards. And of course, she always does it in front of the family, as though I am some kind of social experiment for her amusement. And then there's the rest of the extended family, cousins who flaunt their law firm associateships, uncles who casually drop how much their startups raised in funding, and distant relatives whose small achievements are somehow magnified because they match the family's obsession with status. It's like living in a constant competition where the rules are never fully explained, and the prize is approval, something I realized. You can never really win, at least not in the way they define it. Meanwhile, I am a freelance digital designer. I work from home. I set my own hours. I take breaks whenever I want, and I work on projects I genuinely care about. I've built a solid client base over the past few years, and my income is more than enough for Daniel and me to live comfortably. But in this family's eyes, freelancing is cute work, something people do before they grow up and get a real corporate job. Pajamas at 11 a.m.? How unprofessional. Work that doesn't have a fancy title attached. Worthless? I've long since learned to tolerate the snide comments, the laughs that follow, and the backhanded compliments. But Aunt Margaret is a different story. She has this uncanny ability to make everyone else in the room join in, as if her opinions are law. When she asks me, with a perfectly practiced smile, whether I actually have real clients, or if I wake up early to work, she isn't genuinely curious. She's publicly testing me. And everyone else, politely nodding or chuckling along, reinforces her cruelty. It's exhausting. But despite all of this, I never let her see me truly flustered. I smile. I nod. I give neutral answers. I let her have her moments. Because I know something she doesn't. I'm not just doing freelance work to get by. For the past few months, I've been working on a massive, high-profile project that could completely redefine my career. It's competitive, high stakes, and requires every ounce of skill, creativity, and strategic thinking I have. And the final approval is pending. So yes, I may appear small in her carefully constructed world of corporate prestige. I may work in pajamas while she walks in designer heels. I may not have a title that fits her rigid definition of success, but I have something she doesn't, and it's about to speak louder than her snide remarks ever could. Because when the right moment comes, the truth has a way of showing itself. And Aunt Margaret is about to learn a lesson she won't forget. It was my mother-in-law Linda's birthday, and as usual, she insisted on a dinner that could rival a 5-star gala. The dining room looked like something straight out of a wedding magazine. Crystal glasses glimmered under the chandelier, the gold and white tablecloths were perfectly ironed, and floral arrangements overflowed from every corner. Candles flickered softly, creating an atmosphere that was elegant and a little suffocating. Daniel squeezed my hand as we walked in. "Don't let Margaret get to you tonight, okay?" he whispered. "She's been in a weirdly competitive mood all week." I raised an eyebrow. "When is she not?" He chuckled under his breath, but didn't respond. The family was already gathered around the table, greeting us with smiles that were just polite enough to hide judgment. The air was thick with small talk about promotions, bonuses, and whose company had landed the latest big client. I felt the familiar weight of invisibility pressing down on me. I was part of the conversation technically, but my freelance career barely registered as real work in this room. And then Margaret arrived. She entered like a force of nature, heels clicking against the polished floor. Her designer dress shimmered under the chandelier, and her perfectly styled hair bounced as she strode toward us. She carried herself with the kind of confidence that only comes from years of reinforcing your superiority in every room you enter. The moment she saw me, her expression shifted from polite acknowledgement to that familiar smirk. "So, Emily," she said loudly, loud enough for everyone to hear, "still doing those little computer drawings of yours?" I froze for a fraction of a second, forcing a smile. Daniel leaned closer and murmured, "Ignore her." But Margaret wasn't about to stop there. She settled into her chair with the kind of deliberate ease that suggested she was about to launch an assault. And I knew it. "Oh, you'll love this," she announced, ensuring all eyes were on her. One of my colleagues asked if Emily's work is real work or just a hobby. A few chuckles spread around the table. Her husband, my cousin Brian, gave her a gentle nudge. Margaret, maybe don't. "What?" she said, feigning innocence. "I'm just being honest. I don't really understand how freelancing works. Isn't it unstable?" My mother-in-law's voice chimed in, quiet and measured. "Well, dear, it's just not a traditional job." It wasn't the phrasing. It was the intent behind it. Everyone knew exactly what Margaret meant. I forced my smile into place, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. Dinner was served, but the subtle humiliation didn't stop. Margaret had a knack for sneaky barbs disguised as questions. "So, do you even get benefits? Clients? How many do you have? Oh, and do you even have to wake up early?" Her laugh followed each jab, sharp and knowing, as if she were conducting a symphony of judgment with everyone else as her orchestra. Then came the worst moment. She raised her wine glass, drawing attention to herself with an exaggerated tilt of her head, to the people with real careers. The ones who actually contribute. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Daniel's jaw tightened beside me. I could feel his discomfort radiating through the table. Margaret. Enough. She waved him off, completely unbothered. Relax. I'm just being honest. Some of us have to handle adult life properly, she said. Her eyes locked on me with a gleam of superiority. I let the words wash over me, keeping my expression calm. But inside, I was smiling at a different truth, the one she had no idea existed. For the past few months, I had been working on a massive project behind the scenes. High stakes, high pressure, international scope. The kind of work that could redefine my career. I had poured my heart and soul into it, and the final contract approval was expected any day now. The timing, I realized, could not have been more perfect. As Margaret continued to gloat and poke at my supposed inadequacies, my phone buzzed quietly against the table. Once, twice, 3 times. Each ping sent a thrill of anticipation through me. I pretended to check it casually, not wanting to alert anyone yet. Then I saw it, the email subject that made my heart skip a beat. Final contract approval, lead creative director assignment. I glanced at Daniel, who gave me a subtle nod, sensing something big was about to happen. My grip tightened around my napkin, and I took a deep breath. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The one where I could finally let my work speak louder than Margaret ever could. Slowly, deliberately, I stood up. Every eye in the room, including Margaret's, shifted toward me. The air went still, thick with curiosity and tension. It was about to get very, very interesting. Margaret wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Even as I stood there, everyone's attention on me, she leaned back slightly in her chair, a smug smile playing across her lips. Oh, are we finally going to hear about what Emily actually does all day? She asked, her tone dripping with condescension. Or is this just another one of those creative projects she calls a job? A few nervous chuckles circled the table. I could feel their eyes flicking between us, waiting for the punchline Margaret had obviously prepared. Daniel's hand found mine under the table, giving a small, reassuring squeeze. Margaret continued, oblivious, or perhaps deliberate, in her cruelty. I mean, don't get me wrong, she said, waving a hand in mock dismissal. Freelancing is cute. Really, cute. But it's just not serious work. Not like real corporate work. You know, deadlines that matter. Clients who pay millions. Presentations in boardrooms full of executives. Her words were precise, rehearsed. Every phrase designed to make me shrink in front of the family. And Emily, she said, locking eyes with me now, how do you even measure your success? Likes? Followers? Little projects for people you probably barely know. My mother-in-law Linda gave a polite smile but didn't intervene. The subtle message was clear. Margaret's in charge tonight. The room had been primed to laugh with her, or at least nod along silently. I kept my face neutral, letting her ramble on, because I knew this wasn't about insulting me. It was about showing off her superiority, and she didn't realize that every word she said was setting the stage for her own humiliation. She leaned forward now, elbows on the table, her voice rising just enough to carry over the murmur of polite dinner chatter. Tell me, Emily, do you even wake up early? Or do you just sip coffee in your pajamas while everyone else is making actual money? A few cousins stifled giggles. Brian, Margaret's husband, shifted uncomfortably. He knew where this was. Margaret, he said softly, trying to temper her. What? She snapped, turning toward him. I'm just being honest. Not everyone can handle the pressures of a real job. Some people just drift along doing their art or whatever it is. Her eyes narrowed. And Emily, don't you just love that we all have careers that actually matter? She gestured around the table, as if the air itself shimmered with her accomplishments. I let her finish, sipping my water slowly, pretending to study my plate. Inside, I was vibrating with anticipation. The truth, the thing she had absolutely no idea about, was minutes away from being revealed. Margaret, emboldened by the silence and the faint laughter of the cousins, raised her wine glass dramatically. To people who actually contribute, she declared, tilting the glass in a toast meant for everyone but me. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth, watching her smug expression. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew I was about to flip the table in my mind. Figuratively, not literally. And then my phone buzzed again. Once, twice, 3 times. Margaret noticed my sudden attention on the device. Her smirk widened. "Ah, checking your little emails, are we? Hoping one of your imaginary clients will finally pay attention." I smiled softly. "Funny you mention that," I said calmly, letting my voice carry across the table. "Because it looks like someone did." Her smile faltered slightly, curiosity flickering in her eyes. She leaned in, as if trying to catch a glimpse of something embarrassing. An invoice, a rejection, maybe a pathetic little fan mail from someone I worked with. But that wasn't what the email said. I could feel the room holding its breath. Margaret's confident posture didn't falter, yet I could see the first crack in her armor. A tiny twitch of surprise in her eyebrows. The kind of twitch that comes right before reality hits hard. And then I knew, all the subtle jabs, the laughs, the cute hobby remarks. They were about to backfire, spectacularly. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's simply letting the truth walk in, dressed in authority, and stand right in front of the person who underestimated you. Margaret thought she was in the spotlight. But she had no idea who would truly own it tonight. Margaret, convinced she had me cornered, leaned back in her chair with a triumphant smirk. "So, Emily, what exactly is this serious work you do? Or is it just more of your projects that don't pay the bills?" Her words dripped with condescension, the kind that made me grit my teeth behind a polite smile. But I wasn't worried, because for months I had been quietly working on something so significant, so high stakes, that it would completely shatter her carefully constructed hierarchy. For the past 3 months, I had been developing a secret collaboration with Titan Global Consulting, one of the largest international firms in the marketing world. It wasn't just another client. It was a competitive, high-pressure, boardroom-level project with visibility across multiple countries. I had spent endless nights perfecting the strategy, designing concepts, and coordinating with international teams. Every ounce of skill, creativity, and focus I had poured into it. And now, finally, the final approval was arriving. And the timing? Pure poetry. As Margaret continued her condescending commentary, my phone buzzed once, then twice, then a third time. The screen lit up with a notification that made my heart skip a beat. Final approval. Lead creative director assignment. I felt a surge of adrenaline. My hands tightened around my napkin as I took a deep, calming breath. Daniel's eyes met mine under the table, giving the tiniest, almost imperceptible nod. He knew something big was about to happen. Margaret noticed my attention shift to the phone. Her smirk widened, her confidence completely intact. "Checking your little emails again? Hopefully, one of your imaginary clients finally sent you a real paycheck," she said, laughing lightly to draw the family's eyes to me. I held my smile, my voice steady, as I said, "Funny you mention that." Her eyebrows shot up. "Oh," she said, leaning in, clearly eager for a chance to mock whatever she thought I was about to reveal. "Yes," I continued, letting my calmness contrast sharply with the storm of curiosity building around the table. "It seems one of my projects isn't so imaginary after all." The room went quiet. Every family member's gaze shifted toward me. Margaret's confident smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. I pulled my phone from my pocket, pretending to scroll casually. Her eyes followed every movement, expecting something trivial, an invoice, a social media comment, maybe even an unremarkable email. But this was different. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Because what she thought was my weakness, my freelance career, my cute little projects, was about to become her public embarrassment. I could feel the shift in the room already. The air was electric, charged with anticipation. Margaret's posture changed subtly, a small crack forming in her armor. Her fingers gripped her wine glass a little tighter. She didn't yet know it, but she was about to be the one frozen in disbelief, while I would finally step into the spotlight I had quietly earned. All that remained was the final reveal. The email that would rewrite the balance of power at this table, in this room, in this family hierarchy, and then it was time. I took a slow, deliberate breath and looked up from my phone. Every eye in the room followed my movements, curiosity and anticipation blending with the tension already thick in the air. "Since we're talking about careers," I said calmly, letting my voice carry across the dining room, "I think it's a good moment to share something." Margaret chuckled lightly, her smirk returning, though with a trace of unease. "Oh, are you going to show us your latest doodles?" she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. A few of her cousins chuckled along, not wanting to be left out. I ignored her jab and opened the email on my phone. The room fell into an expectant hush. Margaret leaned forward slightly, her confidence still intact, probably expecting something trivial or embarrassing. But what she saw next froze her. At the top of the email, in bold letters, were the words, "Welcome to the Titan Global Marketing International Rebranding Project. Lead Creative Director, Emily Carson." Margaret blinked. Her smirk faded. Her eyes flicked to the sender's name. From Robert Kendall, Senior Marketing Director, Titan Global Consulting. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her hand trembled just enough that her wine glass clinked against the table. She stared at me, disbelief written across her face. I continued reading aloud, my voice calm and measured. "We are excited to finalize your contract. Your role will include directing mid-level staff throughout the project. Included on this team is one of our senior administrative staff, Margaret Kendall." The words hit her like a lightning bolt. Her fork slipped from her hand and clattered loudly against her plate. Her face drained of color, then flushed red with embarrassment. The room was completely silent. My mother-in-law's eyes widened. "Emily, you'll be Margaret's supervisor," she whispered, her tone filled with genuine surprise, not condescension. "Yes," I said softly. "During the entire 6-month project, she'll be reporting directly to me." All at once, every gaze snapped to Margaret. Her confident aura, the one that had dominated family dinners for years, crumbled before the undeniable proof of my success. She tried to laugh it off. "This must be a mistake," she stammered, her voice shaking. I'm a senior VP. This can't be right." Brian, her husband, sighed and reached for her hand. "Margaret, calm down," he said gently. "Calm down," she snapped, now standing abruptly. "She can't be my supervisor. She doesn't even have a real job." Daniel folded his arms, a small, triumphant smile on his face. "Looks like she does," he said. Tears began to well in her eyes. She looked at me, voice breaking. "I work so hard. I should be leading, not her." Richard, my father-in-law, cleared his throat. "Apparently the company disagrees." That was the final straw. Margaret stormed out of the dining room, chair scraping loudly, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Brian followed quietly, trying to calm her. The room remained in stunned silence. I stayed seated, phone in hand, heart still racing. My mother-in-law finally spoke, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "Emily, I had no idea your work was this significant." Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. And for the first time, Margaret's bravado had crumbled completely. She had underestimated me for years. My freelance work, my schedule, my cute projects. And in one moment, the truth had shattered every assumption she had made. Margaret tried to recover, but her carefully constructed facade had crumbled completely. She stood in the hallway just outside the dining room, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her designer dress suddenly feeling suffocating. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to regain composure, but the sobs escaped despite her best efforts. I don't understand," she gasped, her voice cracking. "I've worked so hard. I should be the one in charge, not her." Brian, ever the calm presence, put a hand on her shoulder. "Margaret, breathe. Calm down. Let's go sit for a moment." She shook him off, turning toward the open doorway of the dining room, where everyone still stared silently. "Calm down? She's running my team. She She doesn't even have a corporate job. How is this possible? Daniel, standing beside me, folded his arms with quiet satisfaction. Looks like it's possible, he said simply. Margaret's lips trembled. I've done everything right. Boardroom presentations, corporate KPIs, awards, and she just walked in and... I finally spoke, my voice calm but firm. Margaret, this isn't about what you've done or haven't done. It's about the project and the skills required for it. I didn't compete with you. I just did the work. Her breath caught. The work? You mean your projects? Her voice sounded small now, fragile. Yes, I said softly. And apparently it was exactly what the company needed. She blinked rapidly, swallowing hard, tears welling again. I thought I knew everything about business, about success, and you've shown me something I can't ignore. For the first time, she wasn't being sarcastic. She wasn't performing for anyone's approval. She was genuinely humbled. She sat back down at the table, head lowered, voice barely audible. I'm sorry, Emily. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I thought I was better. I thought you were beneath me. I nodded, letting her words settle. Thank you. And for the record, I never wanted to compete with you. I just wanted respect. Margaret lifted her head slightly, meeting my gaze. Her voice cracked again, but this time there was sincerity. You have it. I promise. I see that now. The rest of the family remained quiet, absorbing the dramatic reversal. Richard, my father-in-law, shook his head slightly, as if even he couldn't quite believe how things had unfolded. Linda, my mother-in-law, gave me a small, approving smile. Even Daniel's expression softened, a mixture of pride and relief washing over him. Margaret stayed silent for several minutes, reflecting, reeling, and perhaps reconsidering everything she thought she knew about success, hierarchy, and family judgment. She had been humbled, publicly and privately, and there was no denying it. And for me, in that quiet pause, I realized something important. This wasn't just about proving her wrong. It was about showing that work, effort, and talent aren't always visible on a resume. Sometimes they speak for themselves, and when they do, no amount of arrogance or status can overshadow them. About 10 minutes later, Margaret returned to the dining room. Her makeup was smudged, her designer composure gone, but there was a new humility in her posture. She sat across from me, avoiding eye contact at first, but her voice was quiet and sincere. I'm sorry, she murmured. The room stayed silent, waiting. She took a shaky breath and continued. I shouldn't have spoken to you the way I did tonight. I didn't know. I thought, she stopped, blinking back tears. I thought you were beneath me, that I had more experience, more skill, more everything. I nodded slowly. Thank you, Margaret. That means a lot. And for the record, I never wanted to compete with you. I just wanted respect. Her voice cracked again. You have it. I promise. I get that now. It wasn't just a casual apology, it was a shift. Margaret, who had spent years projecting superiority and belittling anyone who didn't fit her corporate mold, was finally humbled. The energy at the table changed. The tension dissolved into quiet understanding. My mother-in-law, Linda, glanced at me with something that resembled admiration. Even Richard, ever the skeptic, gave a subtle nod of approval. Over the next few weeks, the project began. Margaret, now my direct report, approached the work professionally. Surprisingly, she adjusted quickly, learning to take direction while contributing her expertise. There were no snide comments, no public digs, just a new, if slightly awkward, professionalism. One afternoon, after a long virtual team meeting, Margaret approached me privately. Her posture was hesitant, but her voice was candid. I used to think people who didn't work traditional, corporate jobs were lazy, she admitted. I thought anyone outside the boardroom wasn't serious. But working under you, seeing how much effort you put in, I was wrong about everything. I smiled gently. Success doesn't always look the same for everyone. Titles, corner offices, designer shoes, they don't define value. She nodded. Thoughtful. I get that now. Really. For the first time, it felt like we were on equal footing. I wasn't just Emily, the freelance designer. I was Emily, the lead creative director of a massive international project, someone whose skills, effort, and leadership demanded respect. And Margaret had finally learned that no amount of boasting or corporate prestige could overshadow genuine talent and hard work. The family, too, began to adjust. At future dinners, the casual condescension faded. Conversations about titles and salaries no longer dominated the room, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged, not by pretending to fit in, but by letting my work speak for itself. And the lesson lingered, quietly but powerfully. You don't need a flashy title or loud self-promotion to prove your worth. Sometimes, the right opportunity, the right timing, and the right demonstration of skill are all it takes to change how the world sees you. In my case, that one email didn't just change Margaret's perspective. It changed the way the entire family looked at me. And it gave me something even better: the satisfaction of knowing I had achieved success on my own terms, and that my work, not someone else's ego, finally commanded the respect it deserved. The project continued for several months, and Margaret, surprisingly, adapted well under my leadership. She contributed her expertise, followed directions, and even learned a thing or two about humility along the way. Our relationship remained professional, but there was an unspoken acknowledgement between us. Respect earned through effort, not titles. One evening, after a particularly grueling strategy meeting, Margaret approached me quietly. She hesitated, then said, "I used to think that success was only about titles, corner offices, and fancy companies. I thought people like me, corporate climbers, were the only ones who mattered. But working under you, seeing the skill, dedication, and leadership you bring, I was completely wrong." I smiled gently. "Success doesn't always look the same for everyone, Margaret. It's not about the loudest title or the flashiest office. It's about the work you do and the impact it has." She nodded thoughtfully, her voice sincere. "I understand that now. Thank you for showing me, and for proving that respect can't just be claimed. It has to be earned." For the rest of the family, the shift was subtle but unmistakable. At future gatherings, the casual condescension faded. Conversations about who made the most money or held the highest position no longer dominated the room. For the first time, I felt like I belonged, not because I tried to fit in, but because my work and my accomplishments spoke for themselves. And that's the real takeaway. You don't need flashy titles, constant validation, or loud displays of success to prove your worth. Sometimes, the quiet dedication to your craft, the patience to wait for the right moment, and the skill to seize an opportunity are all it takes to change how the world sees you. In my case, one email changed everything. It didn't just shift Margaret's perception. It shifted the entire dynamic of a family that had long equated worth with corporate prestige. It reminded me, and hopefully everyone else, that real success isn't always visible on a resume or announced with fanfare. Sometimes, it's simply the work you do, the value you create, and the respect you earn that speaks the loudest. And in my life, that quiet, steady work finally had its moment in the spotlight. Because when the right opportunity arrives, it doesn't just reward you. It reveals the truth to everyone who doubted you.